It's the Jack and Nick Horror Show.
Hello, Nick.
Jack, good evening.
Good evening to you, sir. Hi, everybody. This is Jack and Nick Horror Show. Welcome to the new year.
Yes.
Yes. Go on. Sorry.
Well, no, I was just gonna say tonight, man, we're doing something completely different that will upset some people and excite others.
Yeah. Yeah. There's not. Again, there's not going to be a movie this week, or a movie of the week this week. This week, it's going to be Nick and I bullshitting and talking about movies that we have seen that we kind of want to play. We're kind of playing catch up since we no longer do a we no longer do slasher cast where we would have a movie review every week. There might be a bunch of movies that we have seen, but we can't comment on our show because we just don't review movies anymore. So that's kind of what we're going to be doing, plus other points. I'm sorry?
Except for when we talk about movies that are kind of reviews. I don't know what we do here.
Yeah, we just show up and record a show. But Nick, we have a pretty awesome little thing to talk about with the listeners, huh?
Oh yeah, man. Let's talk about what we're doing next week.
Okay, so next week we're going to do a movie review. There you have that. We're not going to tell you what it is yet, but we're going to do an all-new segment. And as far as Nick and I know, and we could be wrong, this is going to be the first time this might have been attempted by a podcast, or maybe horror podcast. We want the listeners, yes, you guys and girls, to write an email to us. The email that you're going to get a pen and paper. We'll wait for a second. Hey, Nick.
Yeah.
Do you think they have a pen and paper, or do you think they're just going to remember it and put it in the phone?
It's pretty easy to remember the email of Jack and Nick Horror, right?
Yeah. So it's Jack and Nick Horror at gmail.com. That's and no ampersand. It's AND. Jack and Nick Horror at gmail.com. What you can do is write us an email telling us that you would like to join us on this little journey we're going to do with 3 lucky listeners. How are these people going to join us in the journey? What is the journey going to be, Nick?
Well, we're going to be having a special game show that we're going to be running. Jack says he even has a prize. We'll see if we remember that next week.
I have the prize.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, I really do. It's not a big prize. Don't get excited, people.
But here are the requirements. We need you to have a mic on your computer.
Yes.
If you're going to be calling in via Skype. So no shitty internet connection and no shitty mic. We need to be able to hear you. If you're calling in on your phone, you lose the game. Good day, sir.
We shame you, or yes, we shame you. So yes, you can do that. Don't use DSL. So yeah, it's basically
we don't know what time or what day or anything. We're gonna work that out with the first 3 people who respond, pretty much.
Yes. And there is going to be a waiting list too. And if we get more than 3 people, I should say. So what'll happen is, the way it'll work is we're going to send out a tweet that says that if you want to join in this thing, you might want to listen to the show. We're not going to tweet this. So just write to just write to Jack and Nick Horror at gmail.com and tell us you want to be a contestant. Tell us who you are, your height, your cup size. No, I'm just kidding.
You went too far.
I know. You knew it was coming.
Seriously though, again, a mic and an internet connection.
Mic and internet connection.
We're going to do it via Skype, and we're all going to be playing the game. Well, running the game.
Yeah, we're going to be.
Also, I guess you can't be a loved one or employee of the Jack and Nick Horror Show.
Correct. Yes, you cannot. And the way it's going to work is you're going to have both the Jack round and the Nick round and a possible lightning round.
Oh, yeah, we'll show them all that next week.
So, yes, join us next week. Maybe on the show. Again, just write the email, Jack and Nick horror@gmail.com. So, tonight, Nick, are you ready to talk?
I have my tongue. I'm ready to talk.
Okay. I do as well.
Good.
We might be talking about some people who may not have tongues and my
Really?
talking. Yeah.
That's going to be a theme?
Yeah.
All right.
Possibly.
Let's go.
All right.
Yeah, Jack.
There was another podcast by the name of Slashercast, and on that podcast, you reviewed a movie called Green Inferno.
Mm-hmm. I totally love the Green Inferno. This is Eli Roth's new movie that was, well, actually one of his two new movies because he just had another one right after this. But Green Inferno was his homage to Cannibal Holocaust, the famous cannibal movie from the 70s and 80s. 1980, in fact, right?
Right, yeah. And yeah, I'd say it's an homage to a whole group of cannibal movies. He actually, when watching this in the credits, he mentions, he gives thanks to those movies. And he lists the cannibal movies that he kind of paid attention to. So this movie is very polarizing as far as... the
response.
The responses, yeah. But, I mean, so is everything that Eli Roth does, because he's kind of like the, we'll say the nerdy Rob Zombie, where people love his movies or they hate his movies, or it's just the personality that they love or hate. It's very hard to figure out or pinpoint.
Well, I mean, I could tell you what I like about Eli Roth that other people hate him for the same reasons that I like him, I think. I like that he's very inspired by he's very how do I want to say this? He's very inspired by like specific movies. And if you watch those movies, you get a greater understanding of what he's doing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like Rob Zombie's the same way in some respects. And I mean, granted, I haven't seen every movie that, these guys purport to love. But when you've watched just a handful of the ones that they're saying are like really important or influential to them, you're like, oh, that's why this thing in this movie makes no sense. Because in the movie that he stole it from, it also kind of made no sense, Yeah. And I know, like, a lot of the criticisms of Eli Roth are true. I think the worst part about him is, a lot of his dialogue is cheesy when it's not supposed to be. A lot of his... he does not have a whole lot of restraint,
Right.
A lot of these are the same criticisms of Rob Zombie, but these are sometimes the things that I love about their movies. I love that their movies are cheesy and corny at times, because you know what? When we watch old movies from the 70s and 80s, they are cheesy and corny,
Right, and that's kind of why I would compare the two. Well, not compare them. I would put them in the same. They're in their same bubble.
Right.
And the granddaddy of their ilk would be Quentin Tarantino, who has seen every fucking movie just about, and does his own greatest hits version of them and creates a movie.
Yeah, I mean, specifically to pull a scene from Quentin Tarantino movie that kind of explains what I'm talking about is in Death Proof. There's that scene early in the movie, or no, actually in the middle of the movie, after the first group of women, meet stuntman Mike, and it introduces you to the second group of people, and there's that long, like 12-minute scene just at like a diner or a cafe where they're just hanging out and talking and bullshitting.
Mm-hmm.
That's like a scene that will make people hate that movie, and the people are like, why is there so much talking? And it's like, if you go back and watch older movies, from the 70s especially, you'll see a lot of like and I'm talking like corny, cheesy ass movies. There's going to be scenes like that are just like long talking scenes that go nowhere and do nothing, but kind of give you a flavor for the movie.
Right.
And that sort of thing crops up in all of their movies, just different flavoring to movies that make their movies more interesting than, like, let's say when you watch just some random thrown together movie that ends up in the theaters. Especially like in modern movies, you have a hard time even remembering characters' names. From like that's one thing that people said a lot about like Jurassic World, not horror, but a good example. Like everybody in the world saw Jurassic World, nobody remembers a single character name from that movie. It kind of tells you something about the way the characters are written by Hollywood these days.
And they should name them all Jenner for Jen Eric. Anyway,
I think one of them was named Claire.
Claire.
I think so.
Answer the question.
That's all I kind of remember.
So Green Inferno.
Yeah, Green Inferno. Coming back to what we're talking about.
Coming back. So I didn't know what to expect. I purchased it regardless because I will pretty much. You know me with movies, Nick.
You purchased them out of hand.
Yeah, I blind buy like crazy, but it's movies that I know I would probably either like, and if I don't, I can kind of figure out why they don't work. I don't know. It's a weird thing, but it's just what I do. It's my only vice, okay? So, I bought it, and I watched it over the weekend with my girlfriend, and I really, 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 really liked it a lot.
I was very afraid that you were going to say hated it.
No.
I really was. I didn't know what you were going to think of it. I thought you would like it, but I'm glad you actually did.
And I'm going to tell you why, because people really don't like this movie too, but I don't care about those people. I really don't. No offense to those that are listening right now and are like, how dare you? God damn you, get your damn hands. None of that. I want to hear it. I'm just saying that I really enjoyed this movie because of a whole bunch of reasons. One is that, okay, so Cannibal Holocaust, when you're done watching it, you feel like shit. Cannibal Ferox, when you're done watching it, you feel like shit. Green Inferno, yeah, it makes you feel terrible, but it has and I'm not going to spoil the movie, it has some kind of hope where there's kind of like a shift and twist in who dies and who lives, or who maybe everybody dies. It kind of throws you for a loop, and you're like, oh, I wanted that to happen, and it sets you up with something else. And it's weird because it feels just like Hostel 1 and Hostel 2 in a sense, because especially Hostel 2, I will say. Except there's no massive payoff, and I'm okay with that. So with that, I enjoyed the movie way more than I even thought I would. And the way it played out, and just with there's a double cross and all this, there's a lot of, comments on slacktivism and not only just that, just in general of people just joining a group just to get laid.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's exactly what this movie's about. It's about how a lot of people will push a cause. And I mean, that's the general, context and subtext, furthermore, for this movie. Eli Roth was inspired by the Coney 2012 movement from a couple of years ago.
Right.
That was a big do-nothing campaign that everybody felt really good for participating in for a couple of days. He basically watched that happen, and also the Occupy Wall Street stuff, which generally was the same thing. There's a lot of anger there with young people, and a lot of them want to act on something, but it seems like a lot of people just show up to these movements just to be part of a movement, but, without any sort of real compassion, just to be seen as having compassion so that, they appear more worldly by participating. That's pretty much the definition of slacktivism itself. And obviously, there's a ton of stuff. Go on Twitter for like a day, and you will see all the outrage politics of Twitter are impossible to escape. Go on Tumblr, go on Facebook. You'll see it everywhere. Everybody's pissed off about something for no reason. And what are they doing about it? Nothing. They're tweeting about it.
Yep.
And I mean, it's one thing if you're trying to educate someone, but it's another if you're just regurgitating something that you read someplace else on some website that was hip to you or that you think is hip or whatever. And this movie is basically, it takes those people who, do nothing and just want to be seen as doing something. And it is honest with characters like that. Like in no other movie are you going to sit there and see characters who are actually, posers, faking it.
Mm-hmm.
Who end up way over their heads when they actually go down there and try to save this tribe. And it turns out that the tribe didn't want to be saved by these group of saviors,
Right.
And it's wonderful. I mean, for someone like me who really gets bothered by, movements that go nowhere and slacktivism, stuff that's like, change your profile pic to end child abuse. What? That's not going to end child abuse. Well, yeah, but we're raising awareness about child abuse. Who doesn't know about child abuse? I've had these arguments for years, and now there's a movie where those people get eaten by cannibals. Why wouldn't I love that?
I had a college professor before that yelled at people ringing bells about AIDS awareness in the hallways because they were disturbing his class. This guy was like Al Pacino. And he walked down the class and goes, "What are you doing?" They're like, "We're making you aware of AIDS." He goes, "I am aware of AIDS. I'm aware of how you get AIDS. I'm also aware that you can also lick I think he said lick the toilet bowl or something like that." I'm like, this guy's on fire. He was so mad. He comes back in, he's like, "That's enough of that."
It's terrible.
Yeah, it's terrible.
See,
but
the one I gave the example of that everyone is familiar with, if you're not getting what I'm saying or whatever, is the pink ribbons in October, where everyone wears pink. Everybody has a pink shirt day at work. Everybody wears pink ribbons. You eat food with pink ribbons on the box. But if you actually look into the Susan G. Komen Foundation for 20 minutes, you'll never want to give money to them at all. So consider that next October. But anyway,
yeah,
so Green Inferno, man, come back to that.
Yeah, I gotta say that the acting. The funny thing is, I started to listen to some of the commentary. I fell asleep. Not that it was boring. I've just been working a lot. There's a guy that's in the movie that is he's got a crush. He's like the fat guy that's got a crush on the girl that's always going to be the fat friend. And that's something that they mention in the movie, who's really good in it. And I found out that he was a crew member that they decided to just put in the movie because they said, we have to make this character like him. And they said, well, why don't we just put him in the movie? And that's what they did. And he was really good. He's a standout.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that, cannibal movies are not my favorite brand. I really enjoyed Cannibal Holocaust and the message that it was saying. Cannibal Ferox, too, for that matter, I think is a good movie. Makes both of them do make me feel terrible, but the brutality in those movies, especially Cannibal Holocaust, is it still is pretty high watermark even today. And the brutality in this, I think, is not as bad, but that's okay because that's not really the kind of movie that it really is. I think it's homaging the previous cannibal movies, but it stands on its own as its own film. And that's kind of what I really enjoyed about it. It has a different feel and vibe than the other ones. And that's what I appreciated about it as well. I mean, I still enjoyed it for the entertainment value of it, because normally when you, well, I'd say you, but I mean me, but when I watch a cannibal movie, I know I'm in time, or I'm going to be in the time of, this is going to be depressing. And in a way, Green Inferno is, but it has not necessarily comical moments, but it has, real characters, real type of people in it, in a bad situation, and you actually do hope that some of them get out. At least I did. So I really, really enjoyed the movie. I would recommend it if you're an Eli Roth fan. If you're a hater, you're just going to hate it just because.
Yeah. I mean, because, I'm sorry, continue.
Oh no, I was going to say the one scene that I've heard a lot of hate on, or one moment. I'm just going to mention it. It's not going to be exact. I'm not going to spoil it, but it's a pooping scene, we'll say. And I've heard that, oh my gosh, why would that be in there? That's just so stupid. It's not even. He thinks it's funny. It's comical. I didn't find it to be funny, because when you have those moments where you're going to be eaten by people, and you've seen one of your fellow friends get fucking filleted and torn apart and cooked and eaten, your organs and just your bowels, nothing's going to work, because you're going to be scared for your life. And there's a moment where somebody, let's say, says they have to crap. And they do. And it happens, but you don't see it. And I found it to be, I mean, people interpret it any way they want, but I found it to be kind of realistic in a way.
I saw this in a theater, and everybody in the theater was just like, "What the fuck is this scene?" when that happened.
Right.
And I mean, I thought it was I remember I was laughing at not the scene itself, but at how absurd it was, because this movie, this is the moment, in one of the many moments in this movie, where Eli Roth just has no restraint.
Right.
He doesn't know to pull back. In a regular movie, they'd be like, maybe that's not quite something we should have on screen. He's just like, no, fuck it. She's gonna shit in a corner.
And not many movies do that. So it's good for him. I mean, not many movies have pancakes in it. Not many movies have what's the other thing from Hostel, the bubblegum kits. These movies don't have those. When you're watching an Eli Roth movie, you know it's an Eli Roth movie. Same with Rob Zombie. Same with Adam Wingard. Same with these Ty West. You know it's their movie. They have a voice. They're not generic. Regardless if you like them or not, they're not generic, and you have to give them some sort of credit, even if you don't like them at all.
Right.
And that's kind of what I really appreciate about Eli Roth and Green Inferno. I thought it was a really enjoyable movie, and I would recommend it to people to watch. I don't see any harm in the movie at all. I
wanted to say one more thing though, man, because it's that movie is really epic for a horror movie.
Yeah.
Just the way that they can point the camera off and film the actual Amazon, because they filmed this in the actual Amazon. You don't get to see that in horror movies a whole lot, and in some ways, this was like a horror Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
It was just so, I mean, really grandiose for a horror movie.
Beautifully shot, yes.
And you throw that in on top of the fact that it's actually a good horror movie. And I thought it was great. When I first saw it, I thought it was Eli Roth, my favorite Eli Roth film. Since then, I've kind of cooled off, and I think I like Hostel 2 better again in my brain. But it's definitely a great movie.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Again, So, I'll get through a few other things, a few other films. One of which is a movie called Condemned that just came out on Blu-ray. And have you heard of this one?
No, I've only heard of the one with like Steve Austin.
Okay, I was waiting for that.
That's all I know. That and the Condemned 2 with Dean Ambrose. But I've seen neither. You know, for as much of a wrestling fan I am, I've like never seen movies with wrestlers in it except for a handful.
Well,
so what's this movie?
Anyway, this one just came out. It has, and this is weird. I didn't even know this about the movie because I heard that it had basically the story is I'll give you an idea. A rich girl and her boyfriend are squatting at a Manhattan slum apartment place for nothing, and there's the people there get infected with some kind of mixture of something and become possessed and want to kill people. That's basically the whole plot. That's it.
But is it good, or is it just a retread of everything that we've already seen in our lives?
Well, that's the thing. So the movie stars Dylan Penn. And I go, Dylan Penn? That's Dylan Penn. I find out it's, Sean Penn and Robin Wright Penn's daughter. Who is quite attractive, I'll say. It's got her. It's got a few other people that you might know from other movies. Nobody too famous. There's one guy that's in it. What's his name? The one from Stakeland and all that kind of stuff. I can't think of his name. Why am I? I'm blanking on names, by the way.
Wait, the guy in Stakeland?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, he's in it for a weird part, but anyway, it was cool. It was a cool movie. It's very, very pussy and bloody, but it's one of those movies that after you see it, you're like, that was fun, cool. And that's as far as it goes. I don't know if I would watch it again, but it's one of those movies that it feels like Wreck Light, if that makes any sense.
You know, when you were describing it, that was exactly what I was going to ask you, if it was like a Wreck retread or something.
Somewhat,
it
but
sounds so much like Wreck. You know, people in a building get a virus, start going crazy.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a guy that's making this mixture of shit, and it just keeps on, the camera keeps going through the drain, and the stuff that people are pouring down the drain is creating this concoction that starts messing people up. I mean, it's got some really, really cool effects in it too. So I mean, that's basically what it really is. It's like it's like, here's our effects, like the movie I mentioned last week, the Murderous. It's sort of like that. It's not as mean spirited as that one is. So I would say check it out. Maybe rent it. It'll probably be on Netflix instant in due time. So another one, Nick. Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse.
Oh, you saw that one?
Yeah.
Was it decent? The trailers looked like it was going to be all right.
Yeah, it was a fun movie.
Yeah.
It's like it really was. I would say it was really, really enjoyable. And you know how we are with zombie movies these days, and
Laid out, dude. I don't want to see zombies anymore.
Yeah, I think that the title could have been different, and I think the title is kind of stupid, but it was a fun movie. And I was surprised because David Koechner is in it again.
Yeah, and also Arnold Schwarzenegger's son, right? Is one of the main scouts.
Yep. It's good. It's
funny, or
yeah, I mean, it's not like roll around laughing, but there are some genuine comic moments in it, and there are some pretty gross out comic moments in it too. But it's kind of like it's like a road trip through the town zombie movie, and it kind of has a fun spirit feel to it that you kind of don't get too much too often. So I would recommend getting it because even the characters are good in it too.
Well, tonally, the trailer reminded me very much of the movie Cooties that came out last year.
It's kind of like
Did you see Cooties?
Yes, I did see Cooties, and I enjoyed Cooties.
Did you enjoy this more or less than Cooties?
I would say maybe the same. Or
Because that's right at my zombie threshold. Like, if it's worse than Cooties, I kind of don't want to see it. And I enjoyed Cooties, but just because it's like zombies, man, I'm so played out on zombies.
this one here is like it's kind of it's almost it feels sort of like Deathgasm in a way, even though it's nowhere close to Deathgasm.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to invoke the name Deathgasm because then you're set heights like.
But it's got the same spirit.
Expectations.
It's got the same like happiness and fluffiness to it.
I always describe movies like that as being bombastic.
It's sort of like that, yes.
Okay.
So, and speaking of fluffy, Final Girls I watched because we mentioned this last week and I didn't get to see it. And I wanted to catch up on 2015 movies. Final Girls is incredible. It's an incredible movie. Yeah.
So now this movie is like a meta horror comedy where a girl like ends up in the movie that her mother was in back in the 80s or something, right?
Yes. Yeah.
It's like a slasher movie. Right.
It opens, and this ain't really a spoiler. The mother dies tragically, and it's a year later. She goes to the movies with her friends, and they go to this double feature, and one of which is it's like an event they have, and they're showing the anniversary of the slasher film in which her mom was in, and there's a fire that erupts, and then they jump into the screen, but actually end up in the movie. And the comedy in this thing works really well. The characters are great. There are some... I'm telling you, man, I've never felt so bad for characters when they die.
Really?
Yeah, you actually... They reach that moment in a slasher movie where you're like, you feel bad. You might even get choked up watching it. And it's a PG-13 movie too, which is, it's. But the thing is that the movie knows what it is, so that's okay by me. It doesn't necessarily have to be R-rated. I mean, of course, I would have added to it, but for me, but it doesn't have to for itself. Like I appreciated everything about it. So, but it's it's a movie that I would say cool to watch with your wife, Nick. If you and I watched it together, we'd probably not talk to each other for about a year because we were like, that was so cool, that was cute. And then we were like, wait a minute, did we just say cute? All right, we gotta separate for a year. So it would be like the Jack show and the Nick show. So that's
see now. I was kind of turned off by the premise just because I feel like we've seen that sort of idea so many times. But from everybody who has liked the movie has said that they also were kind of turned off by the premise and the movie sold them.
Yeah. It really I was too, and then once it starts, once they get into the movie, you will understand that you're going to love the movie. It's one of those. Nick, they actually, I'm not going to mention when, they reference Pieces.
Really?
Yeah.
The movie Pieces.
The movie Pieces. People. Yeah. But when they get in there and something happens right away, you're just like, okay, this is going to be fun. It almost feels like you're playing a video game. That's in a way. It feels like you're playing a game where you're in, not you're in, you are in the movie too, and enjoying it. The colors, everything. It's great. Soundtrack's fun. It's fun '80s stuff. Even though a lot of the '80s songs from that are not necessarily in all the movies, but yeah, I would definitely recommend watching that movie. But Nick,
Yeah.
I'm gonna get back to the other stuff. I want you to bring up some stuff.
Well, there is one movie we were talking about, Eli Roth's movie, and the other people who made it with him, the Green Inferno. But it kind of made me think of another movie that I had seen that I actually couldn't make it through. I don't think I've mentioned it on this show yet, but the movie is called The Stranger, and it came out, I believe, sometime last year. It was on Netflix. I can't say if it's still on Netflix because at the end of the year they like switch up half the movies on Netflix.
Yeah.
But it first off, it says Eli Roth presents The Stranger. Anytime it says some name presents a certain movie, you have to be careful. It's probably not that great, and they either are doing it for a friend or had some money invested in it or something. It's probably not that good. Sometimes they have nothing to do with it at all. What's that?
Although that's how Eli Roth kind of started with Hostel, with Quentin Tarantino Presents. Even though he did start with Cabin Fever, I understand. But go on, sorry.
So anyway, The Stranger is about there's this town somewhere in the Midwest, and a stranger appears, and then weird things start happening in the town. But guess what? I can't even really tell you what a lot of the weird and mysterious things were, because at about like half hour to 40 minutes into the movie, I was like asleep on my couch. And it felt like I had been watching the movie for about 4 hours at that point. Like, it was just slow moving, not a slow burn, as people like to say, just a slow movie that was going nowhere. And it was actually written and directed by one of the guys who also wrote Green Inferno with Eli Roth. But I guess he's just not as good a director. Even the fat friend from Green Inferno who you enjoyed is in that movie. And the best part of that movie, The Stranger, was when I realized, hey, that's the guy from the Green Inferno. That's the only positive I have to say about it. It's just slow and boring, and like the stranger comes and, oh, let's put him in a bed because he got hurt, and I don't know. Oh my God. Just going back to that movie makes me so bored I don't want to talk about it.
As you're talking about it, I'm yawning.
Man, maybe you'll love it. Humans of Earth, go and check that out on Netflix, or just avoid it because it's awful. And I really wanted it to be good because the trailer looked mysterious and sort of brooding and foreboding, and I wanted to enjoy it because I like movies that are mysterious, foreboding, and brooding and all of that. But the movie itself was just a slog, so don't watch that one. And another movie. Now, I've already seen this one years ago, and so have you, Jack. I wanted to talk a little just about a subject of watching movies amongst friends, because I watched VHS 2 again the other day with my wife, and she had a bunch of her friends over, right? And I find myself, like, when I'm watching a movie like VHS 2, I said I think it's one of the best horror movies of the past couple of years. It's one of my favorites, blah, blah, blah. And then I suddenly realized, oh no, I oversold the movie. What if they don't like it? What if they don't get it? You know what I mean? Do you ever find yourself being that horror fan that, like, you're like, oh, here, let me show you some stuff because, I'm the weird friend with all the horror movies.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh yeah, I totally love this movie. There's blood and guts in it. And then your friends watch it. And since they don't normally watch horror movies, they kind of don't get it.
They either don't get it, or the horror friends that you do have that do get the movies don't want to get the movie that they're watching.
No, that's worse. That's worse. When you have that hipster horror friend that's like, oh, this isn't that great. It's not as good as whatever Italian movie I saw last month.
That happened to me with There's Nothing Out There, which is one of my favorite. That's a meta movie before it became a word. Or it was a whatever. It was. I put it on and I said, "Man, you got to watch this. It's one of my favorite movies. It's so low budget and it's ridiculous, but it's great." And we start watching it, and then he goes, "I think I've seen this before." And I go, "Are you sure? Because it's not really readily available. Like, you have to buy the Blu-ray, or I'm sorry, the DVD. I have 2 DVDs of it. Like, there's a newer version put out by Troma, and the old version, and 2 different commentaries, all that." And I'm like, "Nah, this is, trust me, this hasn't really been mainstream." And he's watching it, and he goes, "Yeah, I saw this before. Can we watch Father's Day again?" And I'm like, oh. And dude, it was not even like 10 minutes into it. I'm like, we didn't even get to the Pink Panther references or nothing. We got to none of this. It really upset me. But go on, sorry. VHS 2 with friends. But I know what you're talking about. It sucks.
Yeah, no, it wasn't a situation like that where they were being dicks or anything. It was more like I had to bite my tongue because I was the horror fan who knows too much, loves this movie too much, and probably couldn't shut up about it once I start talking. Jack, remember when we watched Day of the Dead and I annoyed you by talking the whole time about every little detail in the movie?
You didn't annoy me because I've seen Day of the Dead before.
I know, but you know how I am. I don't shut up when I watch a movie that I really love, and like I know all the details and all the background and all the little like bits of trivia and stuff. Like I'm watching VHS 2, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to mention that guy's the director of Your Next, because what if they didn't see Your Next, and maybe they didn't like Your Next or get Your Next, or maybe there's they probably also don't care. They probably don't also give a shit that this guy was in that movie, or this guy is actually the writer. Like in the beginning when it's like, oh yeah, there's Simon Barrett naked. I didn't want to be like, oh yeah, he's the writer of this movie and that and the other movie, and all these things. And because like, why am I going to be giving all this background information to people who don't care? or that it would be a distraction is my greater fear, that it would be like completely taking people out of the movie because I'm talking like random nonsense and just kind of being a motor mouth about shit that people don't really notice or care about. I mean, even like on my my YouTube channel, my gaming channel, like when I'm playing video games, I'm like talking nonstop in those videos, and it's even very hard for me to edit because I have to catch myself like in between sentences sometimes when like I'm just trying to have the conversation with people that I'd be having with them in the room. You know what I mean? Where sometimes it's just like information overload because I know too much about what's going on. And it's like you want to show horror movies to your friends, but you also don't want to annoy the shit out of them with horror movies or ruin the actual atmosphere and tension of a horror movie that was carefully set up by the director and could be ruined by the fat guy on the couch who won't shut up about it.
Right.
So that was kind of problematic for me, and I had to avoid it. And then right afterwards, we played what we do in the shadows, the movie, the vampire movie, the vampire comedy mockumentary. If you haven't seen that, by the way, great movie. If you listen to last week's episode, that movie was in my top 5, and Jack's. And as soon as I started it, I was like, oh yeah, this is probably the second best horror comedy I've seen other than Shaun of the Dead. And I was like, oh no, I oversold it again. But it was okay. Everybody ended up loving VHS and the other one that I just said, What We Do in the Shadows. Everybody laughed their asses off. That movie's funny. I don't care who you are. That's funny.
You know what? The same thing happened to me with Father's Day. I had 2 of my friends over. I didn't talk about it though too much, but I said to them, "We're gonna watch Father's Day." And it's funny. Astron 6 are another group. Well, you can't say it's one person, but they're getting so much hate from people because of the editor, which has really blown my mind. But even Father's Day, from like people that love that stuff, they were like, "Oh, the movie's terrible." I don't know. I see, and the reason I mention this, like, I don't care if people don't like a movie that I love, but when I see hate just to hate it and people piling on just to pile on, it's an annoying thing for me. I get really, like, kind of bothered by human beings, and that's when I shut down social media and go in a little cave. But I'm watching Father's Day, or I put it on for a couple of my friends that we would always watch movies together. You have met them a couple of times, and I said to them, "Look, you guys haven't seen this. The movie is going to feel very, very serious at first, and it's not going to be quite funny at all. And then there's going to be a moment in this film where they're talking about a tree, where it takes a turn and it doesn't stop until it goes completely ballistic and crazy."
Mm-hmm.
So we're watching it, and it felt like a fucking eternity. It felt like an eternity till that tree moment came, and they were just getting restless and shuffling their feet and like all that. And I'm like, it's coming. Just give it a moment, please. And finally, when it happened, they both bought the movie right then. Right after the movie was over, they went on Amazon and both bought it.
So that's a good reaction.
That's a good reaction. But yeah, I totally get that. I hate that feeling that when you're really excited about a movie, and even with your significant other, and you're it's a movie they haven't seen but you have, and you're just like, oh my god, you have to watch this. It's one of my favorite movies ever, and you obviously hope that they like it too because that's your significant other, and you're like, you start going, you see that guy in the background? You know who that is? That's Dana Carvey. Shit like that, just to sell it some more, like you're a freaking salesperson for this movie. And I hate it when you feel the when you feel like you have to sell it. I just hate that feeling.
I know it.
Yeah.
See, and that is the other side of it, I guess, where like some people you don't want to oversell it,
right,
and then other people that you have to like be like, look, it is as good as that Italian movie you saw last week, you punk ass.
Oh God. Speaking of, there's a movie called Queen of Blood, which I got, an older movie. It has John Saxon, Dennis Hopper, Basil Rathbone in it. It's a Corman produced movie, and it's sort of the I would say the original Life Force, even though it feels like an old episode of Star Trek.
So it's like an alien vampire thing?
Yeah, they find a woman. They find this woman, alien, green person.
Okay.
Who
from the stars,
from a ship, and she's a vampire, basically, and drinks people's blood. You don't see it. You see a little droplet on her mouth when she's sleeping. But there are some really bad decisions in this movie too. The funny thing is that it was kind of dull, and I was really excited about it because I love Corman stuff. I love cheese-tastic stuff, and this is from the '60s, so there was a different vibe then. It's another one I watched with my girlfriend, and we were both kind of like, it was alright, but I appreciated the originality of it for its time. And Dennis Hopper and John Saxon naturally, but it gets a lot of people love the heck out of this movie, and I understand it, but for me, I appreciated it. That's as far as I can go with it. Like, I didn't hate it, but it's not one that I would say, oh my god, Nick, go get Queen of Blood, go watch that shit now. Yeah. However, I will say, Blood Rage, I will say, you need to see Blood Rage. Oh, Nick, you need to see Blood Rage.
So what's Blood Rage?
Blood
Which one's that?
Blood Rage is an 80s slasher movie that takes place during Thanksgiving. And I got it from Arrow. Well, I purchased it from Arrow. I don't get screeners. But I got it from Arrow, and they have... I mean, Arrow Video makes the best products in the world. Like, they... Basically, this movie had come out in the 80s, and you never had a DVD release. They got the rights to it, and they released it in 3 different versions. There's the US version, the UK version, and then a compiled version of both the UK and US version. Mm-hmm. So it's the movie is about twin brothers, one of which is a psycho, and one of which is not a psycho. The psycho kills this couple at a drive-in theater and puts the killing utensil, I'm not going to say if it's a knife or whatever, you have to see, in his twin brother's hand and blames him for the murder at the drive-in. Everybody blames the brother. You flash forward years later, and psycho brother is out and about, hanging out, just being normal, or pretending to be normal, and psycho quote-unquote brother is in the mental institution. The psycho brother gets out of the mental institution, and the real psycho brother starts to go psycho on Thanksgiving and just starts killing people. Like, he just kills them. And Nick, the kills in this thing are beautiful. They are beautiful.
I do love beautiful kills.
Beautiful kills. Gory. Bloody. Beautiful. There's a ongoing joke throughout the whole movie, and it's actually the tagline on the front of it. It's not cranberry sauce. So it's a really, you can tell that it's it feels kind of like Sleepaway Camp 1. Mm-hmm. Where all these kills take place at an apartment complex. And the whole movie is set in an apartment complex. Except it's not like floor 1, floor 2, it's it's like this little community, let's say. And there are woods in the community and all that. Okay, so if you're an 80s slasher enthusiast and you need to see this movie, or if you want to see this movie, or if you're not, just buy the Arrow Blu-ray DVD. You're not going to be disappointed. And if you are, well, sell it. Somebody else will buy it. It's one of those things. Like Fallout 4, Nick. I'll just mention that real quick. Fallout 4, I'm kind of disappointed with it, so I'm going to sell it. I'm going to get money.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to do.
I'm still trying. It's just not the game I expected it to be, but, we're not going to really dive into a Fallout 4 discussion.
No, we're not going to. But the last movie I want to mention that I watched, and this one has been making rounds all over the place, is Bone Tomahawk.
Oh, yeah. The Western... What is it, a cannibal movie, or...?
Yeah, it's a... Let's say a Western cannibal movie.
Great job.
It's really good. It's... Okay, so there's a moment in this that I had both of my legs closed, and I was kind of pivoting toward the corner of the chair.
Uh-huh. I don't know what that means exactly.
That means that there was something so horrific going on in this movie that I, cringed into a little fetal position ball on a chair. You'll understand when you see it. It's quite it's quite graphic. However, the movie itself is a good long 2.5 hours, and it's got great performances. I mean, and the actors in it. My gosh, really. Oh, Richard Jenkins. That's who I didn't mention last week. I couldn't think of the guy's name, and that's my. But yeah, Matthew Fox, Kurt Russell, obviously, Richard Jenkins, Patrick Wilson. There. Spoiler alert: there are two other people that are in this in the beginning. Sid Haig and David Arquette show up in this movie as well. I'm just saying spoiler alert because I mean they show up right at the very beginning of it, which is it's cool for a horror fan when you're about to watch this Western movie and then Sid Haig shows up.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
See, that's kind of what I was going to ask. Do you think that like you have to be able to enjoy westerns to be able to enjoy Bone Tomahawk?
Yes, I would say yes. Even though it's one of those that's if you have to enjoy a Western, yes, but it goes into a realm that doesn't necessarily feel like a Western. Even it's very hard to describe. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can sense the dread throughout the movie, but it's the basic premise of it is there are cannibals that attempt to kill a couple of people, one of which escapes and ends up in this little town where Patrick Wilson fell off a roof. His leg is broken. His wife is like a nurse, and Kurt Russell is the sheriff. He's got his deputy, who's Matthew Fox, and this kind of stuff happens. Blah blah blah. But basically, one of the people that survived the cannibal things is at the bar and says, "Hey." Starts messing with people, but not in a mean way. They just think he's kind of sketchy. Kurt Russell comes over. They find out he buried something, and then all of a sudden, the cannibals show up overnight, take the sketchy guy and the nurse, and then it's a road movie where Kurt Russell, Patrick Wilson, Matthew Fox, and Richard Jenkins all go on a journey to find the wife. Mm-hmm. And that's the basic premise of it. And then they may find her. They may find her in pieces.
There may be gory bits.
There may be gory bits. But yeah, they take, I think one of the other deputies, I always get the rankings mixed up. I'm sorry if I'm wrong, but they take him as well. I thought it was a fantastic movie, and it just felt really. It feels long, but it's good. So
that's cool.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
So now you said that was the last movie you had to mention, though, right?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
All right, because I wanted to bring up something. This will be probably the last thing that we talk about this week. But I wanted to bring up something sort of horror adjacent. Mm-hmm. It's certainly reported about on all the horror dirt sheet websites. But Preacher, okay? Preacher's a comic book series. It is one of the most well-known graphic novel series. It came out in the 90s. It actually ended around the year 2000, I think in the year 2000. And it is about a preacher who gets the word of God, a power that allows him to just command people to do anything, and they go do it. And it's very Western inspired, just like Bone Tomahawk. And except it takes place in modern times or 1990s times at the time. And it's got a lot of really ridiculous stuff in it, leading up to battles between God and the devil and all of this set against a Texas backdrop with a hard drinking preacher, his vampire friend, and his blonde bombshell girlfriend. Very much an exploitation film put on page. And I think it's horror enough for me to talk about on this podcast, but it's going to be a TV show very soon, coming out on AMC. The people who also somehow successfully made an adaptation out of The Walking Dead, a lot easier than Preacher. Preacher's got a lot of very taboo stuff in it. It can be very gory. It deals with, stories about religion that have. It's always hard to tell a story about evil surrounding a religion because, religious people, man, they get up in arms over everything. It was always, this has been in the works for seriously 15 years. It was going to be a movie. It was going to be a series of movies. It was going to be a TV show. It's gone back and forth. I remember at one point Kevin Smith was going to be involved in writing a script for it, and Ben Affleck was going to star in it, of course. That was probably about 15 years ago. And now it's finally coming out. And a lot of it, like there's a trailer for it. And I'm very worried about it because I'm a huge fan of the comic books, and I'm not a fan of like anything that I've seen with the TV show so far. I think that the trailer just felt really wrong to me. Like it didn't feel like a good representation of the comic book. Maybe other people who enjoyed the comics feel otherwise, but I don't know. I also don't like that they hired Dominic Cooper to play Jesse Custer, the main character, the preacher, because I feel like he's like, when I look at him, I kind of get the feeling that he's probably like 5'3", and I always felt like, I mean, Jesse wins a lot of fist fights in the comic book, and I just don't feel like this little dude could win a lot of fights, especially not in the, the bare knuckle way that Jesse Custer can in the comic books. And there's a lot of other weird stuff in the books that doesn't seem to be getting translated to the screen. And this is being from the first thing that tipped me off that this was probably not going to be that great is it's being produced by Seth Rogen, the guy from Knocked Up, and that's Seth Rogen, the guy with the curly hair and stuff. The interview. You know who I'm talking about, people. Not you. I know you know. What I'm talking, you know what I mean.
Well, I'm speaking for them. You're welcome.
Thank you. They thank you. Anyway, they did an interview recently with Collider, and that's a website, Collider.com, or Collider. I don't know how to pronounce it. And a lot of it is like, some of the direct quotes from it. It doesn't seem that we should do it that way, referring to the way that the story is told in the books. We talked with Garth Ennis, the writer, and he encouraged us to make a lot of small changes to make it a show first and foremost. Our big thing is we want fans who love the comic to get everything they want, but also make new twists and turns. But he goes on to say that they had to make stuff from the show more palatable, right? But my least favorite part of this is they're talking about a character named Arseface in the books. Arseface. Arse is an ass because the Irish vampire character names him that. The reason he names him that is because this character is a teenage boy who, after hearing about Kurt Cobain shooting himself in the 90s, shot himself in the face, but lived. And his face kind of now bends inward and looks like a butthole. And they talk about how there was like original test footage makeup done for Arseface back in like probably about 2000 or 2001, and the picture's online. If you do a Google search for it, you'll find it. It's still out there. And they talk about that picture, and they're like, yeah, there's some fan made makeup that's still out there on the internet, and everybody wants Arseface to look like that. And for the TV show, we had to do something that was more palatable. I guess that might be the word. And we wanted the character to be symptomatic and ultimately like someone you rooted for. And then he added to it, we want the show to be for regular people with not sick sensibilities. It's like, and that's like, no, no, you want it to be for regular people who don't have six sensibilities. And like, who do you think liked Preacher? That's who liked Preacher. The people with, six sensibilities. People who are able to watch graphic and grotesque things happening on a page and continue reading and being like, wow, I need more of this messed up character interaction. And I mean, the characters are roguish but lovable in some respects. And even Arseface becomes a character that you do root for in the comic books, even though he looks like a butthole. And I've seen the makeup for the actor that they have in the TV show, and it doesn't look like he's even really that deformed, and it's very strange. And I don't know, I'm just really worried about it. I don't want them to mess it up, and I'd like to give it a chance, but it's just like so much of it already seems wrong that I don't know that I can enjoy it. And I wonder if I would still enjoy what this TV show looks like if I hadn't read and loved the comic books. Like, my favorite comic ever is Preacher, Like, yeah, I like superhero comics too and stuff, but my favorite thing, one of my favorite stories ever is Preacher, And it really worries me to see that it's being turned into a TV show that's going to be, there to appeal to the masses. That just frightens me, that we're taking like this really niche sort of, like I said, horror adjacent story about a man who fights God, and turning it into this whole other thing. I don't even know if I have a discussion to have with you about this or not, Jack. I think I just needed my platform.
No, you do. I get it. I mean, it's the same type of thing. I mean, it's almost like when they said a while ago, years and years ago, that they were going to make a TV series out of Fulci's The Beyond. Mm-hmm. I was like, no, you can. What's it going to be about? You really can't do it. No, you just can't.
I mean, I understand. Like, they wanna make stuff like more palatable for people, as they said. Right. They have to reach the broadest audience possible because that's how television works. Mm-hmm. And it makes me feel like I just wish that you wouldn't make it then, but I can't. I mean, I'm just a little man who has said, hey, a live action Preacher would be great if they could do it, and now they're doing it, and I am not convinced that they can do it. So, I mean, that's a wait and see, and maybe I'll eat my words. I would love to be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure that it looks like it can't please me, And I don't know if that'll matter in the long run, because AMC has had a lot of success with their little shows too, like Fear the Walking Dead and Better Call Saul. So who knows? Maybe Preacher's the next big thing.
One silver lining of this is maybe they're just throwing that out there to see what kind of response they get. So
I doubt it. They sound like Hollywood scumbags, man. When you hear like Hollywood people talking about something and saying that they're going to make it more palatable, and no, they would, if it was going to be grotesque and weird, that would be the selling point of it. They would be like, this is going to be a grotesque, weird, fun ride for everybody. And when you think about like, American Horror Show kind of pulls that type of stuff off week in and week out. How is this going to be? Like, really, that's the thing with Preacher. They should be aiming for that crowd rather than the vast crowd of The Walking Dead. And they're kind of aiming too high in a way. They're aiming too high in a way that would sort of remove the quality and unique elements that make Preacher.
They're trying to turn something that's not commercial.
Yeah, it's that's really what it is.
Mm-hmm. And I think that if something's niche, if there's a niche thing, the only way it really truly works, especially these days, and I see it in Blu-ray and DVD, is just do like a limited thing, like a limited release. I mean, a lot of them do it to get money, obviously, but when you put something in that sort of on that platform where you put it into a AMC for that matter, I mean, Walking Dead works, and yeah, it was a graphic, comic, great. Uh, Same with Preacher. They're going back to that well, thinking, okay, so we have all these Walking Dead shows that we're gonna be making, so we kind of have to go somewhere else. Let's go to Preacher, because that's been talked about for eons, and then we'll get all the comic book people. But we have to get more people because we need money. So
Right.
it's I don't think it's gonna work. And even I would say, even if the source material is exactly just like the comic book, I would say that it's, from the way you're telling it to me, I don't think it will work with today's audience, because today's audience has already turned their backs on shows like Hannibal that people love. What's the other show? There's another show I was thinking of. I can't think. It's late. Give me. But I don't think that. I think that a show like that would work great on cable, and especially HBO or something. If it's my understanding that was the original intention.
Yeah, and I mean, I really
fell
think that
apart.
they should have gone, like, if they were going to make a quality show, they should have gone with somewhere that they would have a little bit more freedom, like Netflix. I
Right.
mean, just as an example, Jessica Jones. I don't know if you've watched it yet, but it was a tremendous show. Not horror, obviously, but an adaptation of a more lesser known Marvel character that is, more of a noir psychological thriller. And it was totally awesome, totally great. And they would have the sort of time to develop something like that, on Netflix, but not week to week on AMC. It's a lot.
And you gotta have time
It's
for
scary, dude.
commercials.
Yeah, not just commercials, but like the retaining an audience, creating likable characters. That's kind of what's neat about the Jessica Jones. There's not really likable characters on there. There's just characters that you root for in the face of worse evils, and that's a really cool concept that you don't get out of a lot of TV shows.
And
So, man,
yeah.
I guess if you have nothing else to say and I have nothing else to say, we can wrap up this week.
I got nothing else really. I do have one little thing. I have an update. I found the gift. I found it. It was just in the wrong shelf.
Oh, you mean the movie, The Gift?
Yeah, the gift.
Yeah.
Remember from the last
Yeah,
week?
you lost it right
Yeah,
when
I
you
lost
moved.
it. Yeah, but I
Well.
found it.
Go watch it.
No, I gotta go to sleep, man.
Oh, not today. Just report back. You got 2 weeks.
Okay.
All
All
right.
right. All right. All right.
So, man.
Yeah, man. That's it. The show is over.
Ending.
Once again, people, listeners, if you want to have fun with your Uncle Nick and, and
You
Uncle
bloody
Jack,
Jack.
please write to Jack and Nick Horror at gmail.com and tell us you want to join us next week on the Jack and Nick game show. We'll think of a name for it. It might be called the Jack and Nick game show, or it might be called something completely different. We'll find out. We are going to listen, or the first 3 people that write in to us on email and say they want to be part of it are going to be chosen, as long as you have a good internet connection and a microphone. Right, Nick?
Yeah. And we will probably be choosing somebody as understudy, too, just in case if one of them can't make it or flakes out on us. So be ready for that. But, yeah, come and follow us on Twitter at Jack and Nick Show. And where else are we, Jack? We're on YouTube. I say view these episodes on YouTube, but really it's just audio put up on YouTube. So if ever you cannot download us on iTunes or Stitcher for whatever reason, check on YouTube. I'm trying to keep up with our shows as best I can.
Do that. And yes, you can follow me at JacobK666. Nick?
Follow me at New Jersey Nick on Twitter.
And follow the show.
Yes, follow the show. Follow all of us.
Yes.
Because we're cool.
What is it? At Jack and Nick Show.
Yes, at Jack and Nick Show. And look me up on YouTube. My name's New Jersey Nick on there as well.
There you go. Thank you for listening, and join in for a all-new, fun-filled Jack and Nick horror episode.
Good luck, everybody.
Good luck.
Bye.
I'm gonna miss you.
We'll see ya.
Not you, Nick. You'll probably text me tomorrow.
Yeah, I know. Continuously.
Great.
It's what I do.
Jerk off again.
I know.
Okay. Thanks.
Bye.
See you.